Hello. You might have some question about that filming angle. Well, I got a really bad cold, which is a shame because it's like 20 degrees outside and it's really nice weather. But what can you do? I always thought it would be funny to film from my bed, and I think this is probably a good occasion to do so. I ordered some books again. Of course I did. Sometimes I'm at a point in my life where I just need to do that, and no shame, no shame. This was well deserved, and I think I have like 8 or something. I spent 36 euros. I bought them all used, and I just wanted to capture my. I just wanted to capture my reaction, my unboxing. So. First up we have M Train by Patti Smith, which is quite a nice edition. This was the most expensive book I bought. I think it was like 8 euros, but I really wanted it for a long time, and it's kind of like I just kind of want to read it this year, and so I spent a bit more than I usually do, and 8 euros is by no means expensive for a book like that. So. Der Fisch, der zu den Sternen schwimmen wollte, by Ahn Do-hyun. And a very nice hardcover editions. These Momox books, they're usually a bit dirty, I think because of the way they're stored, but it's still a nice edition. The English title must be something like The Fish Who Swam to the Stars. And I don't really know a whole lot about it. I think it's kind of like a fairy tale. It might be for kids, I'm not sure. I don't really know a whole lot. This was one of those books that was just on my list and I didn't really know how it got there. Oh, god damn it. It happened again. If you see my last book haul, I did the exact same thing before, but this time I am not to blame. Joseph and His Brothers, The Young Joseph, the second part of the Joseph quadrilogy by Thomas Mann, which I have in a different Fisher edition. And last time I also bought the wrong one, and I did it again this time, but in my defense it had the cover of the one that I actually wanted, so well, that kind of sucks. They just don't look very nice together if you have 3 of the same and then one is different. Well, but at least this time it's not an oversight on my part. I finally got a Susan Sontag. In America, it's a novel apparently. Yeah, I didn't know a whole lot about it. It seems to be fiction. I didn't even know that. And it doesn't really look like a typical Susan Sontag, like I would imagine like an essay collection or something to look like. But I wanted to get my hands on Susan Sontag, and forever I think her essays are more well known than her fiction. But to be quite honest with you, I thought this was gonna be non-fiction. But who cares? Next up, I got Andreas Baader by Klaus Stern and Jörg Hermann. This was a very famous terrorist in the like around the 70s. There was a big group called the RAF, the Rote Armee Fraktion, and they were a really famous left-wing terrorist organization. That became, in certain circles, became quite popular. And I have some older friends who kind of experienced that time, of history. And I always wanted to educate myself a little bit more about him. Yeah. I got 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I already read this book twice, but I read it in German. And this is the Gregory Rabassa translation, which Garcia Marquez claimed was better than the original that he wrote. So and it looks really cool. It's a bit beat up, but that just adds to the charm of it. This edition also has a family tree, which is cool, which I think the German one was missing because you kind of lost track of who was who pretty quickly. But yeah, I don't think I'm gonna read this soon, because I already read this twice, but this is definitely something that I do want to check out. It's really a big gift if you are bilingual or multilingual, to read the books that you love the most in multiple languages. It really enriches that whole experience, in my opinion. We got The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. I don't really know a whole lot about this. I think it's like a funny novel about an autistic kid. If I flip through it, it kind of reminds me of Jonathan Safran Foer. It's by Mark Haddon, by the way. Didn't say that. Yeah, we'll see. Seems to, I mean, it's not... Oh yeah, it's under 300 pages. It should be probably something nice and funny. I don't even know, it might be not funny at all. We'll see. Then I got Atonement by Ian McEwan. Last year I read The Cement Garden, and it disturbed me to the bone, but I also kind of liked it. And this was stated, you know, they had that list by... I don't remember who initiated that project, but a lot of really well-known authors made a top 10 list of their favorite novels of all time, and this was on a lot of them. So, and yeah, I would like to. I think this has a really similar cover to the other one that I have. Yeah, we'll see. And then we have Beim Häuten der Zwiebel by Günter Grass, which would translate to skinning the onion or something like that. This is kind of non-fiction, mostly, probably. I don't know if it's fully non-fiction. Günter Grass kind of blurs those lines sometimes. This is also a cover. And in this book he exposed himself, kind of. He was quite politically active, and he, in the height of his fame, he went into like quite a liberal, you know, like the German Green Party direction, and he was quite like almost, I would say, was an activist. And then in this book he exposed himself that he used to be in the SS, in the Schutzstaffel, which is like the Nazi beat-up squad, you know, which he writes about in some other books, but he writes about it in like a fictional setting. And yeah, I'm quite interested in that writer. He's one of my favorite German writers, and I'm quite excited to check that out. So, even though I'm quite a bit under the weather, I hope that this was easy enough to follow. I'll also show you what I'm reading currently. I'm reading 4 books at the same time. I have Walden and Civil Disobedience by Henry David Thoreau, which I'm kind of just like going at it in small steps, just reading a couple pages here and there. I put this on pause for quite a while because I couldn't quite get into it. But I think it's not that hard to read. You just kind of need to put your mind to it, eh? Then I'm 40 pages into Brighton Rock by Graham Greene, which not enough stuff has happened yet to know whether or not I like it. Then I focus mainly on these 2 books. I read the Buddenbrooks for my big book this month by Thomas Mann, which, yeah, I'm gonna go into it in more detail when I finish it, but man, Thomas Mann is on a different level. I read 200 pages, and almost nothing happened, and still it's super entertaining. Like, he just writes characters and their quirks like no one else, really. Quite a fun read for me. And then I have Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk, which has been on my shelf forever. And I'll just say I'm liking it way more than I expected to. Yeah, I'll do a more in-depth review in my reading wrap-up. And yeah, see you next time. Hello, it's a week later and I still have a cold. Was Easter weekend and I didn't really, I was still out and about, so I still am quite a bit sick. But I'm not gonna stop making videos. I have some stories to show you today, or to tell you, I guess. And it's not about the stories within these books, it's about the stories around these books. It's kind of, yeah, just like books that have some special meaning or some special history, some special story that I would like to tell you about. I actually made a whole video about this and I somehow ended up deleting the footage. I don't really know how I did that, but yeah, most of it was missing, so I'm gonna re-record it. It's not exactly the same books, but I'll just show them to you. So, first up we got Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift and The Prophet by Khalil Gibran in this very beautiful Macmillan Collector's Library edition. And I got these in Portugal, in Porto, in Lelos, in that quite famous bookshop that apparently inspired J.K. Rowling to about, I don't know what it's called in the movies, but there's a bookshop that is very much resembles that one with the spiral staircase. Maybe I'll show you a picture. And yeah, for a long time I thought these were exclusive to Lelos, but they're not, of course. But yeah, these books in particular don't really have any special significance to me, the stories I mean, but these nice little books will always remind me of those travels there. Next up I got this book, The People of Paper by Salvador Plasencia. I mentioned this book a couple of times. This was kind of the first magical realism book that I ever got my hands on. An acquaintance kind of talked about it and I got interested in it. It was the first book I ever book hunted for, because already when I got it in like 2018 or something, it was already out of print, and it took me a long time to find it, for a reasonable price at least. And the weird thing is that when I moved out of my old apartment, I was rummaging around on the attic and I found this book and I was like, well, that's kind of weird. How did that get there? And then I took it to my room and I realized it wasn't even the same one. So for some reason, in this random apartment in like a little tiny little village in the middle of nowhere, there existed 2 copies of this same edition of this book that's been out of print for like 6 years. And yeah, that kind of just fits into the magical realism, I guess. And because of that weird coincidence, that kind of added like a narrative for me to this book. Ain't that strange? On the topic of book hunting, I'll show you Scourge Atlas. I also mentioned that a couple of times on this channel. A very weird book. I saw a YouTube video about it and some other books, and this was by far the book that I book hunted for the longest. It took me over a year to get my hands on this book, and the feeling when I finally even held it was so surreal. The contents of the book didn't really particularly blow me away, to be honest, but that's not even what it's about, you know? basically, this at that time, it might have changed now, I'm not sure. I basically at that time it was only published by a small little publishing house called Featherproof Books. I think they're like in the Pennsylvania or something. I don't know. Doesn't matter. No, it's in Chicago actually. Yeah, like a little niche indie publishing house. And they wouldn't do it was not out of print particularly, they would just print it on demand, but you couldn't ship it to Europe, so I just couldn't get my hands on it. And it was retailing for like high ass prices. It was going for like a couple €100. I think the highest bid I saw was like €1,000 or something, and someone seemed to have actually bought it. um, and I was constantly checking like for many many weeks. Like for more than a year, and then I eventually found it for $60, and I bought it. And then a short while after, it was actually, I don't know what happened. Maybe they the Featherproof Books changed their shipment or something. But I haven't checked it now. But then for some time it was very easy to obtain. And I have another copy still. But yeah, this was an experience, and definitely another aspect of being a book collector, to like hunt for books. Um, then we got East of Eden by John Steinbeck. This copy was given to me by a friend back then. We're no longer in contact, but a friend from the US. Her name is Paige, funny enough, like in the books, and she was very much into books, and so was I, and we talked about bookish things like quite a lot. And I had by that point never heard of John Steinbeck before. I think I was like 22 or something. And she gave me this book that apparently has been like in her family for some time. And I had to hurry to finish it, and because she was gonna leave Germany, and I had to read like 50 pages every single day to get through the book in time. And because I'm holding this, you may think I have failed, but I have not actually. But she ended up taking an earlier flight, and she said I could keep the book. So that book will always remind me of her, and it's just like, yeah, just like a cool connection. We got 1Q84, this biggest Murakami book, the first Murakami I ever read. And the funny thing about this is that I had this for such a long time before I even started reading it. I think I carried this around for like 3 years, and I moved like, I think at least 3 times with this book. And I had a time in my early 20s where I was backpacking a lot, and I even took this like in my backpack, and I had like almost no belongings and just a couple of books, and this big brick I carried around so many places. And yeah, it's ridiculous how long it took me to actually read it, and I did really like it. But yeah, it'll always remind me of this. This weighs probably like at least a kilo. Um, yeah, and I just put it in my backpack and carried it and put it in a shelf and never touched it. Next up, I got two children's books. I got Klopf an by Anna Clara Tidholm. This is a book for like toddlers, where you knock on the door. This means like knock knock. And then it opens the door, and you have to, knock on the next door. And this is not actually something from my own childhood. This is from a girl that I used to take care of. Still work in the social field in like a foster care home. And when I left my last job, um, one small girl there gave me this book as a parting gift, and doesn't really have any special connection to me as a person, but still, yeah, like such a young person. I think she was like 8 years old back then, and for her to give me one of her very few possessions, that felt very special to me. So I'll always cherish it, and if I ever have kids, then I'm gonna read it to them. Next up, this is actually from my own childhood. Weiß Bescheid by Paul Köntop. It's like White Knows It All. It's kind of a children's book that explains color theory to you. Um, like the colors they all meet. And then they start fighting and they mix. And then they become a beautiful rainbow. I guess it doesn't really explain color theory. But I actually won this at an art contest in my elementary school, and I remember entering that art contest. The goal was to draw a farm, and I was so convinced that I was gonna win. I was like completely 100% sure that I was gonna win this art contest. And then they announced the winners, and I wasn't one of them. And then they announced a special prize for creativity, because guess who won that prize? And you know what? I think as an artist, because I'm also an artist, even though I was like 7 years old, that was a pretty big step, and that really kind of, like in hindsight, that really was something that motivated me to keep going and keep drawing. And yeah, this will always remind me of that. And lastly, I present to you the nerdiest thing I have ever done in my life. This is a copy of Hermann Hesse's Fairy Tales. And I remember reading this a couple of years ago. Well, probably like 6, 7 years ago. And I really, really like that one story called Faldum, where he's on like a village fair, where there's a village fair, and there's a guy that can make every wish come true. And then one young man wishes to become a mountain. And then he becomes a mountain, and the village kind of becomes like a mountain village. And then the second part of the story is told from the perspective of the mountain, and absolutely loved that story. And then I was looking for it and I couldn't find it, and to this day I don't really know what happened to that book. I probably borrowed it. I probably gave it to someone and they never gave it back. I really have no idea where that book where that book went, but and I couldn't remember the name of the story, so I researched it on the internet, and I eventually found it, and I saw that it was, there was no copyright on it anymore because it was more than 100 years old, and so you could just download the whole book basically. And then I downloaded it and I put it into my favorite font, which is the Courier typewriter font, and I kind of made it, yeah, into a book. I went to the print shop, printed it all out. It was like 10 euros to print it all out. And then I did some book binding and made it into a nice little book. And I actually read the whole thing cover to cover out loud to a boy I was taking care of, which he loved. And he was like semi-verbal. He didn't really talk a whole lot. But after I read this book, he could say Hermann Hesse. Like, actually, he would say Hermann or Hermann Hesse. And I would say Hermann, and he would reply with Hesse. And yeah, I even impacted someone else by doing this. So yeah, this is very, very lovely. This is also just like a really, really good short story collection, which he calls fairy tales, but they're basically just short stories. And yeah, that was it. I'd like to see more people talk about this kind of stuff. It's not directly about the books, I guess, content wise, but if you have a channel, or if you want to make a channel, and you have some special connection to some books, then please use this as inspiration to make a video like this. Yeah, I hope I'll recover soon, and you'll probably see me at my monthly recap video. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.